it's often graduate programs and professional programs like medical school, and law school that actually contribute to the really large numbers that you hear in the media of this person who has $300,000 of student debt. That's not the common story whatsoever when we're talking about undergraduate education.
Hey everyone, my name's Will Geiger, co-founder of Scholarships 360, and I'm really excited to be joined today by Allison Turcio, who's the AVP of Enrollment Marketing at Siena University. Welcome, Allison.
Hey, Will.
So I'd like to start these conversations off with myths and misconceptions in college admissions. I'm kind of curious, Allison, your take on the biggest myth or misconception that students and families have about the admissions process or paying for college.
Yeah, I think the biggest myth is that every single college out there is unaffordable, right? I think the myth that you should write a college off at the start because of what you think the price is or what the price is listed on the website, because so many colleges give additional financial aid in addition to that. It might be merit, it might be more money beyond that. And it's not always just need-based aid or what you think you might or may not qualify for based on filling out the federal financial aid form. So you should go through the process and you should apply to colleges that feel like a really good academic and experience fit, and then get the financial aid package and go from there.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice, and that's been a common theme on the show, just as far as college costs being this big
Yeah.
um, misperception. We had an economist on a few weeks ago who had done some research that shows that cost of college is actually going down for most families, which kind of runs counter to the narrative that you might hear in the news or whatever. Um,
Yeah, and even when, some of these things we hear in the media, especially around student debt, are really scary. But a lot of times it's not contextualized that it's often graduate programs and professional programs like medical school, and law school that actually contribute to the really large kind of big numbers that you hear in the media of this person who has $300,000 of student debt. That's not the common story whatsoever when we're talking about undergraduate education.
Yeah, I think that's such a great reminder. I forget what the stat is exactly, but yeah, essentially that graduate debt is one of the bigger,
Yeah.
proportionally, and even the
Yes.
there's less graduate students, but more graduate student debt. And yeah, I guess, and even for some of those professions, definitely not giving specific advice to students, but for like lawyers and medical professionals, that might make sense just depending on like your profession and
Yeah.
your future earnings. Just kind of depends.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And it's just you don't always know what the background is of the student. And when it comes to those other programs, they people are often borrowing the entirety of the tuition, right? They're not, but there might not be scholarships as much for those graduate and up programs. So it's just it sometimes these stories are out of context, and also it makes you feel like it's really common that that's what's happening, that people are graduating from their undergraduate degrees and they're just saddled with all kinds of debt and they're not able to pay it. One of the things I always tell families to look at is the federal government actually publishes data in the college scorecard. So you can look up any college on the college scorecard and you can see their loan default rate. And the loan default rate tells you the percent of students who haven't been able to meet their loan payments. For a school like Siena, it's very, very low, extremely low, which tells us that students are getting jobs that allow them to be able to cover their monthly loans, and it's okay. They're not having to default. They're not underwater with these loans. So it's something to look at and to understand that there's more to the story than these sort of clickbait headlines around student debt.
Yeah, and I think love the college scorecard. Will include that tip in the show notes. I think that sometimes it can be a little overwhelming, like going through all the data as a
Yeah.
family, but I think that's a really great data point for families to hone in on. And at the end of the day, I think sometimes alone is like a 4 letter word when it's really just like a tool that you can use to pay for school. And sometimes that's like fine. Probably
Yeah.
should be using it a smart way. But going back to your early comment that there definitely are scholarships and other grant money that you won't need to pay back that will be available as well.
Yeah, taking the stance of I'm not going to take out any loans at all. I'm not coming out of college with any student debt. You might pass up a really valuable degree for yourself or a really great experience for yourself. It's not the right answer for everybody. If you want to stay focused on no debt, that's what you want to do, that's okay. But maybe don't take other things off the list. Make sure that you're exploring it because if you're looking at a school that's you think really could be amazing actually, and then you look and the average monthly loan payment is $240. That doesn't feel unreasonable, right? You're going to get a
Yeah.
job that has a decent salary coming out of the school. You're going to pay $200-300 a month, way less than a car payment typically. Contextualizing it is important. So just decide, you do you. Decide what's right for your family, but understand these different factors and maybe don't take a school off the list until you've looked into these other things.
Yeah, I'm curious and if you have a take on this. I've heard and I'm always like skeptical of like this is like very anecdotal and just what I'm hearing through like a handful of conversations. But from the high school side, counselors just telling me that students and families are just like the most adverse than they can recall ever to take out any student loans. Is this something that you're seeing on your end, like during like financial
Absolutely.
appeals? And okay, interesting.
Absolutely, and it's totally understandable if you're a family and this is a really important and critical thing that you're looking into, because it is scary. You have these headlines, and you don't want your child to come out and almost with a disadvantage or feeling like they're digging out of a hole. So can totally understand where all of that comes from. You just want to set your student up for success and not be buried. But just make sure you're getting all of the information for the particular colleges that your family is looking at.
Mhm.
Gather that information before you write one off or not another off because there's more to the story. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Kind of a related, one of I think the more interesting trends of the past few years has been direct admissions, and I think one
Yeah.
of the interesting aspects of direct admissions for me has been the coupling of scholarships, with a direct admissions offer. I think it's just interesting. It provides a bit more clarity around like cost earlier on in the process. Um, I guess like starting out big picture, like what do you think students and families should know about direct admissions if that's something they're coming across, their counselors mentioning them or
Yeah.
friends mentioning to them?
First of all, that it's real. Right? It's an actual admissions offer and it's an actual scholarship when you're getting this information. So kudos to you because all that's happening, it's honestly sort of like being recruited for one of the sports teams at a college. It's sort of like that experience, but it's more for your academic performance. So a college is reaching out to you and saying, "Hey, from this data, what we know about you, you're doing well. So we know that you're admissible to our college and that we can give you this kind of scholarship at our college." So it's coming to you and saying, "Hey, it's validating. It should feel validating for you that you've done some good work and you deserve that colleges wanting you to be part of their community." So it's real and it's something to take advantage of. It also streamlines the application process for yourself. So you're not going to need to go and add that school that gave you a direct admissions offer to your Common App. You're going to be able to probably just fill out a really short form because the school just might need some additional information about you, confirm what major you're interested in, for instance. So you're just able to streamline, save some work, save some time, we all save some stress, all things that we all desire. So look at direct admissions as a great thing for yourself.
Yeah, no, I think that it's, definitely a positive just getting some earlier information on the process. And just for I think for students, when I was on the high school counseling side, I think especially like going into December, that's when sometimes students would be a little anxious just if they, maybe they didn't get into a school, or they
Yeah.
just heard all of their friends, or like for parents, their people in their community getting college acceptances. And I think that if there's schools that are fitting your other criteria and you're excited about, that can be completely agree, a
Yeah.
really, really wonderful thing.
You might get introduced to a college you didn't know about or you didn't think you'd be able to get into. It's just more opportunities. So look at it as a positive and um, take the next step. You're not saying you're going to send an enrollment deposit in or definitely attend a college because you take the next step with direct admissions. You're just taking the next step and raising your hand that you'd like to learn more information about that school. So there's really no harm.
Yeah, no, and I think it's sort of this trend of like almost like blowing up the existing sort of like way that like admissions like worked, where
Yeah.
students would apply to like a handful of colleges, and like it was a very linear process. And I think like maybe big picture, it kind of still is, but there, are a lot. I think a lot of ways, very positive for students that colleges are kind of
Hmm.
competing over them, and it might be a little bit less linear, where you don't have to wait all the way until March for all of your acceptances and then make a decision within a very like short time frame.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Curious, what does this look like at Siena? So I know you all are offering a pathway through direct admissions.
Yeah, really just what I just described. And we do it with a couple different partners. So typically, to be eligible for direct admissions, you have to be on one of the platforms that
Mhm.
offers it. And there's a few different ones out there. So we partner with them and then we find students. We go looking for you that we think would be really great fits as saints at Siena. And then we tell the platform that we're interested, and then you get a communication saying, you'd be admitted to Siena with this kind of scholarship. So it's just a really great opportunity. And I hope that as students and families are listening to this, you're thinking the same thing. It's all it is opportunity.
Yeah, no, we definitely love more opportunity, more information, more
Yeah,
transparency for
yeah,
students.
exactly.
Um, I guess to shift gears, I know you have you're a real like expert in enrollment marketing, and obviously as a marketer, one of your big tasks is understanding student behavior and parent behavior. I guess starting with student behavior, I'm curious just how you've seen that change over your career.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting. What's happened is that students are interested in more colleges than ever. They're applying to more colleges than ever. And I mean, an individual student is applying to more colleges than ever. And this is partially a result of access and making it easier to apply to different colleges. Also, test optional policies, which kind of open that door to more students who might be interested in your school, which I think is a good thing because we have students in a position where you're exploring different options and you're opening yourself up to all different kinds of opportunities and really exploring. So that's one of the things I've seen a lot, where back on the beginning of my career, a student might just pick 4 or 5 schools. And now we're talking about what are the 10 schools and what's the mix of my safety versus my reach and all of that.
Yeah, I to kind of dovetail off of that. I think when I was a college counselor, this was a few years ago, but I definitely think my take was beneficial for students and families to apply to more colleges, just to especially if you're thinking about financial aid and scholarships, just like that's just going to give you like a bit more leverage, more options.
Yeah,
And I think yeah, there's just I think a willingness also for students, and I guess maybe just as like travel gets a little bit easier, cheaper than it used to be like decades ago. There's a willingness to go further, and there probably is like a bit of a viral effect where in a school community, if you see students, might be exploring like different types of college options, that makes it like more permissible
yeah,
in a way,
yeah.
which is interesting.
Yeah, and I think you might wait to visit a school until after you've been admitted,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know the stealth application trend is another big one. For those who don't know, stealth applicant is someone who a student essentially flies under the radar completely until they apply to a college. So they
Yeah.
haven't visited a college fair or visited campus or, expressed, raise the hand to say, hey, I'm interested in Siena or whatever school. That's seems like that's another big trend.
Yeah, well, I think students and families are learning about colleges in different ways, you know? So I think that's just how they happen to come. They might know about you. They might have a cousin who went to your school, but they just didn't feel the need to
Mhm.
contact before they added you to the Common App, and that's how they came in. And so yeah, I think the number of schools that students are applying to, and then also just how students and families are approaching how they create that list of schools that they're interested in is different. And maybe the timing is shifting a bit as well.
Yeah, yeah, and obviously a lot more like, it's, kind of decentralized, more tools. You don't necessarily just have to go to the college for information or have to go
Yeah.
to your high school counselor, which I think is
Heck no.
probably.
Now you can ask AI, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I know there's a bunch of AI, and even just like using the chat prompt and like ChatGPT does a pretty good job of like, and I definitely would have been using that would if I was still a college counselor just to help brainstorm colleges to recommend to students. I think it does a very good job.
Yeah, it does a pretty good job on directionally, I would say. Where it sometimes doesn't do a good job is on the specific facts.
Mhm.
It doesn't all I noticed that on tuition and net cost and things like that, it can be inaccurate or old. So what I would say is many times directionally, might this college be a good fit for me? That it does a pretty good job there. But when you're trying to really hone in on the facts and compare schools based on data, that's when I would always be going to the individual school websites to verify that content. Would not just take what ChatGPT or Gemini or any of the Perplexity, any of these tools you might be using, spout out. So
Yeah.
just on the data, go directly to the institutions for those things.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a great tip. Yeah, I mean, we've all seen like the AI hallucinations and
Yeah,
such.
yeah.
So yeah, trying to when you're and obviously as you're getting closer to making a decision, going straight to the most
Well,
credible information sources.
Well, yes, and when you're at that point, there's no substitute to talking to actual students at the institution, right? Or actual alumni of that institution. There's no substitute for that. AI, can provide a lot of information. There's efficiency. There's so many great things about AI, but it's not a human, and you're going to go to school with humans, and you're
Hmm.
going to be taught by humans in the classroom. So there's no replacement for instance, a campus visit for a school that you're interested in. You can't get what you'd get from a visit from AI ever. So, you really have to have this understanding of where AI can actually be helpful as you're doing your college admissions process and where it can't.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think and especially for in person, campus experience, you definitely wanna see you're gonna be living there for 4 years, and you want to make sure that that's something you're gonna be in an environment where you're excited, and the campus is just a good fit for you. And I think fit is sometimes it's a tough thing to explain exactly. But you want to have just a good feeling of a place that
Yeah,
you're going to be, calling your home for a few years.
absolutely. The facts and the data, they matter, but this is an emotional decision. It's not just a rational decision, right? Where you're going to school, where you're gonna spend those 4 years. It's really closely linked to your identity, even. Where am I going to be an alumni of? These are things. It's emotional, and sometimes we forget to acknowledge that there's a lot of emotions in this, and we do see it when um, maybe there's some fear around making a final decision. Where am I actually going to go? Some stress, some anxiety about will I get into colleges. There are a lot of emotions in play, and sometimes we forget that.
Yeah, no, I think it's just for seniors especially, you have so much going on during your senior
Yes.
year. You probably have your toughest classes. You're so
Yeah,
involved.
and you got to make this big life
Yeah,
decision. at the same time. The biggest decision you've ever had to make. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot. It's a
It is a
lot.
it is
Yeah.
a lot. I always felt for when I on the particularly on the college counseling side, like, the student especially that last month before decision day, it's really hard. It's a big financial decision as well,
Yeah.
going back to that, it's hard to project, and I think that's the other challenge. You're probably gonna change, and that's okay, and I know, if you're making a decision just based off of this, like, one major, like, what happens then if, like, your major changes? And I know, like, a lot of my I was, thought I wanted to study accounting in college and never took a business or accounting class in college. I was a history major, but it didn't make my like, that was a factor in my
Yeah.
decision. The school I attended had a very good program, and, like, luckily, there's, like, a lot of other things I liked about it, but yeah, boy, I would have been, kinda disappointed if, like, that was the only reason I had chosen that institution and I decided to change my major, like
Yeah.
many, if not most students do.
Most students do, but I know if you're listening to this and you're like a high school junior, a high school senior, you're thinking to yourself, "No way will I change my major. I'm really set on accounting or prosthetics or radiology or um art or theater, you're set on it right now, so it's hard to imagine that you might change your mind. But it's just something to think through. It's a what if to be
Mhm.
asking as you're looking at your different schools. What if I get a year into the major requirements and I realize it's not for me? What happens?
Mhm.
These are good questions actually to ask the different schools that you're interested in, because you should know. And whether you end up having that exact experience or not, the answer from the institution will actually tell you a lot about that school.
Yeah, no, I love that, and it's just like a good, as sometimes students are thinking like, oh gosh, I know I should be like asking questions and using this time when I, meet with an admissions officer at a college fair, a campus visit. And so those are some good
Yeah.
questions to be asking, about, just because you're probably not going to find like an answer to that on a website, and I
Yep.
think it's
And or AI.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think even with AI, just like I think, colleges themselves are adapting very, quickly and, different programs, different types of support for students. And like that
Hmm.
also just may not be captured in all of the LLM products.
Yeah.
So
Totally.
definitely, yeah, going straight to the school. I was always a fan of, for students also looking at, like, the school, like, newspaper as being kind of an
Yeah.
interesting,
That's
like,
cool.
glimpse,
Yeah.
into, like, what, like, students care about, and I know it's a little bit more curated than, just, like, social media, but I think it can be interesting just to see, like, what's going on campus.
Yeah. My favorite one today is when a university has a student run social account. That's look for those.
Oh,
Do they have
interesting.
something that's just run by the students, and that will say a lot. It's like today's version of the student newspaper, right?
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Because it's the students deciding of what the content is in there, and of course it's going to be a bit curated because it's
Yeah.
all of social media is, and the students are wanting to do a really good job and put out the best content. But similar to the student newspaper, the choices made around that and what they share tells you a lot about the student body.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that's one of the hardest things to just, like, what is, like, the vibe of the place, and, think that's a very hard thing to assess. I remember back in the day, I think it was like I think the Yale newspaper published like a guide. The guy went on to like create Unigo out of it, but it was just
Oh.
like I remember reading it was just like in Barnes and Noble, when I was in high school, and they had like just like different like vibes of like college campuses, and I was very just like kind of devoured all of that, trying to understand. There probably was some truth to it, but I think this isn't even. It's just like I think I love that. And so colleges are colleges, like, endorsing that essentially and just saying, "Hey, like, this is something that you can easily access," or is it kind of existing outside of, like, university, like, marketing communications?
Well, I think if they're not endorsing it, it says also a lot about
Okay,
that institution,
yeah.
right? Do you trust your students or do you not? Do you want to share as much authentically as you can, or do you not? And if you're not, and you're trying to kind of like control kind of the student narrative or something,
Yeah.
again, it signals to you what the experience of that institution might be like.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great tip. It's just something students can do like next week. Like check out the like go
Go see
follow the
who has student run accounts. Yeah,
yeah, and check follow those and just like, that's helpful just to see over the year just what what's being talked about
totally.
on those. Um Going back to all these like AI tools, I know you mentioned data, just making sure being really careful about data sourcing with some of these products. Are there any other common mistakes you see students or parents making on the AI tool front? I know there's just like so many. It seems like there's so many
Yeah.
every week.
But I think what they boil down to is the advice I would give is do not be using AI as a replacement for your own thought. So, for instance, let's talk about essay first. You don't want an AI produced essay, but you can use it to, for instance, have it ask you questions about yourself to find possible topics for your essay. Right? You can have it help you be reflective about yourself and point you in a direction. And I think the same is true when it comes to comparing colleges and looking at that. Don't have AI like decide for you, but have it ask questions about you to make recommendations that then you evaluate if it's right for you or not. So I think don't use it as a replacement for yourself or a replacement for human connection or human relationships because college is going to have a lot of that. So, but use it where it might actually enhance that. Here's a great example of how you can enhance it. You could ask for recommendations on what to ask at a particular college when you're there on a
Right.
visit to really and match those to what you really desire to know and what your interests and what your goals are. So that's good, and maybe it builds some confidence so you go in knowing what you're looking for and you feel a little bit more brave to ask the tour guide or ask the professor or the admissions counselor, whoever it might be, those questions. So use it to help you, but not replace your own critical thinking and your own feelings.
Yeah, I think that's such great advice. I think Cornell did the study of it was like tens of thousands of admissions essays that were written with AI, and just the kind of like short version was they just were pretty generic and just like not like
Yeah,
stand out or great. And I think like
yeah.
that is the risk, is you just don't want to be like just generic, and maybe you don't get caught using it, maybe it doesn't cause a
But you
problem, but
didn't
just
put
like
your best foot forward. So
Mhm,
maybe you didn't get
exactly.
caught, you phoned it in, you did an AI essay, but you didn't share yourself with us. And that's what we're all looking for in something like an essay. We just wanna know you better and understand you better. So you didn't actually showcase yourself and your personality if that's what you did.
Yeah, yeah. No, and I think for students, it's like that's such a great point to showcase yourself, and just like I like to tell students sometimes it's just like almost better to be interesting than just to write the like best essay ever. Like if it's something that you
Yeah.
still remember, like I still remember my favorite essays from like, a decade ago. I still do read some essays sometimes for some scholarship programs we run, and they're not necessarily the technically best essays, but they just feel very authentic and very human. And
Yeah.
I think there'll be even more of an advantage of like embracing that in this world.
Well, and let's take the technically perfect out of it because where I would say you can use AI is to help you on proofreading, for
Mhm.
instance, so that you don't have grammatical errors. That's a great use of it, but it was still your original thought. It was still totally you, and then it just made those improvements. So if that's what's holding you back, like this fear of writing something the wrong way, that's where AI can help. And the way I like to use it myself is to ask it for recommendations of for clarity, for grammar, for proofreading kind of things. And then you choose so that it doesn't take your personality out. You then adopt what makes sense for your work. So if that's the fear that drives this, then AI can actually help. And then the other thing I know is time. You just don't have time to get to your essay. But I've already described some ways you actually can use AI to help save some time, right? So let's find that happy medium of it being
Yeah,
a
no.
helper, but not again, not a replacer.
Exactly. I love that. Helper but not a replacer. Last question, Allison. I guess talking about all of this, like clearly there's just so many innovations, shifts. Where is this going? And I guess another just like caveat I mentioned, we have a baby at home, and like I'm just like constantly thinking like, what is this going to look like when she's applying to college in like 17 years? So I'm curious, like, what is this? I'll just say 17 years. It's a very random number, but where do you see how the admissions and higher ed landscape is changing?
Well, I've got an 11-year-old and I can't even tell you what it's going to look like when he goes to school. You have a less than 1-year-old. I mean, I think that's really the story here is there's so much changing so fast that how could anyone predict what any of this is going to look like? I mean, I think there's some general things that most of the industry suspects are going to happen. And one of that is there's going to be less colleges and universities. You know, 17 years from now. So I think that will be
Mhm,
happening. But what I would say to the students and families who are listening is you've really got to be tuned into the colleges that are embracing how AI has changed our workplace, who talk about the future of work, because many of the types of jobs and the way we do the jobs, they might be different. And, they're talking a lot about how entry level jobs are going away because of AI. Okay, what schools have the right experiences that that jump over the entry level already. So you're starting a notch above. We gotta be, and we on the college side need to get really focused on making sure that happens for students. But for those of you who are in this process right now and you're looking for colleges, that would be so important if I were you.
mhm.
Looking where do you feel like you're really going to get that solid career preparation, not just for first job, but like can I skip over that sort of entry level first job? And what kind of education can you have that is career and lifelong? What's going to be valuable no matter what comes your way? What's going to be flexible? What's going to be adaptable? What's going to give you those skills to thrive in what we know will be a rapidly changing environment? If there's one thing we know, it's that there will be lots and lots of change and the pace of change will get faster.
I think that's no, I think that's great advice just for, both, thinking a little bit further down the line and also for families now. So I think great advice to leave on Allison. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This has been great. And I think there's a lot of great advice for all the students and families and the Scholarships 360 community, that to chew on and apply to their processes. Thanks again.
Well, thanks for having me. And if you're in this process right now, try to enjoy it. I know it's stressful, but maybe these college visits are like fun family moments that you can have. Maybe there's even memories to be built. So try to enjoy it while you can. Take a breath.
Yeah, no, I think I think that sometimes gets lost in all of this. I think it's fun. It's a fun. There's so many opportunities.
Yeah,
There's so many like, paths and places where
yeah,
you could be really happy and have an amazing experience.
absolutely. It's all going to be okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Allison.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for tuning in to another episode of Office Hours with Will Geiger. If you're a student or parent, don't forget to check out app.scholarships360.org, where you can sign up for our free scholarship matching platform. For colleges, we've got solutions to make your work easier, which you can check out at connect.scholarships360.org. And one last thing, if you or someone you know would make a great guest on the show, I'd love to hear from you. You can always reach me by email or on LinkedIn. Until next time, thanks again for listening.